Hello, I'm Bertrand. I'm a school sister of Notre Dame. I reside in St. Paul, Minnesota, and at this time my primary ministry is full-time facilitation and consultation in working with congregations of women and men religious. In my former life, my former ministerial life, I too was involved in leadership in my own congregation, and prior to that worked in vocation ministry on a variety of levels and in a variety of places. So what I've been asked to do with you this morning in a very brief amount of time is to take a look at what are some of the common challenges that one meets as a facilitator in working with religious congregations. But I want to start off by saying that it's a great privilege to work with leaders as well as members. And I continue to be in awe at the presence and the service that women and men religious offer in so many ways in addressing urgent needs and really in trying to heal this very broken world of ours. One quote that I just came across recently from Brene Brown in her Dare to Lead approach is this: our ability to be daring leaders will never be greater than our capacity for vulnerability. And I think we can all attest to the fact, if we have ever been in leadership, probably on any level, rarely is there a blueprint to tell us what this could look like. And really, the path is made by walking. And I also have to say that I've never known a leader who didn't give it all that he or she could give. And it's in that light that I share these few comments with you. What I decided to do, given the time constraints, is to basically look at 4 challenges that I think I've experienced, but also that other facilitators have mentioned. So the first one that I would look at is that whole area of inclusivity. In fact, sometimes I refer to it as the tyranny of inclusivity, that need to have everyone on board before we can move forward as religious communities. And that sense, we know it in our heads, but we don't always know what to do with that in terms of implementation. But one size does not fit all. So these days, with such a wide range of capacities due to age, to background, to health situations, any variety of things, we need to relook at how do we embrace these realities and these limitations. And how can we practice letting go of our abilities to, in the need to change and to shift? How do we capture the life that is present among us and free it up? So the presence and participation at congregational gatherings, at least in my mind, should not be an endurance test. So how can we look at a variety of ways in which people can still participate without thinking that everybody has to be engaged in the same way? That may seem like it's stating the obvious, but my experience has been that is a huge challenge in many ways and in many places. So how can we do congregational meetings differently? How can we do chapters differently? And what steps do we need to take in order to be given the green light to experiment with what actually might work? A second thing that I would want to mention is I often note that even in communities considering whether or not they're going to hire me as a facilitator, they will often say, we really want to do something different, which I always find exciting. And I don't mean different for difference sake, but because it is necessary. But what often follows from that, if not spoken, at least in fact, is yes, we want to do something different, but really maybe we don't. So how do we assess what isn't working and then change it? It's not enough to just dust off the old files and do it because we've done it before. So what's going to be helpful at this point in time, and who are the new faces that perhaps need to be at the table? So if we can look at not just problem solving, but how do we consider creative options? Many communities are choosing to embrace that whole contemplative way of making decisions, of being in dialogue with each other. So that has, I think, in many ways made quite a difference for any number of religious congregations. So how do we keep looking at what is it that will allow us to be who we need to be at this point in time? How do we not get caught in that we want to be and do something new, but not yet and not really? How do we really take those steps, especially when leaders have so many things on their plates? A third thing that I am discovering is that the pervasive question for many leaders is, what really is our work? And it's a question that I often pose to leaders. And it's not necessarily the same answer for every community or for every leader, but there perhaps are some common threads. Many are dealing with the reality of properties and buildings that may no longer be needed. And I certainly know that leaders need to have the oversight in this, but how much needs to be hands-on? What needs to receive leaders' best time and energy? And does everything that's made of bricks and mortar need to be disposed of at the same time to save the next generation? Though I'll admit that next generation is small. But are we assuming that none of this will be done in the future? And is the only conversation these days becoming about completion, even in communities that still indicate vibrancy and vitality? So what is the work of the present generation of leaders? Is it at least part of the work of leaders today to till the soil for what is yet to come, but may not be all of theirs to do? And how much creativity can we make room for? A fourth piece that I would like to suggest is that need and the desire that I see in many congregations to have those deeper conversations. As Peter Block has often said in his writing and in his speaking, that primary work of leadership is to simply convene the group. So how do we invite people to these deeper conversations? Because that seems to be what generates life. Members long for opportunities to speak to each other about what matters and to make decisions in light of what matters most. And again, I quote from Brené Brown. She talks about choosing our own comfort over hard conversations is the epitome of privilege, and it corrodes and moves us away from the meaningful and lasting change. So, I have often quoted someone's constitution that I no longer even remember, is, may we never speak least about what matters most. So I realize that I have certainly posed more questions than answers, but at least in these four areas, this is some, again, of what I am seeing and what I hope I can share with you that might generate at least some further conversation with your leadership teams or councils, with your own congregation, and to look at what is it at this time that is being asked of us together as we move into the future. Thank you.